The Manhattan's about as old school as it gets, and just like the Old Fashioned, it's made a huge comeback on the cocktail scene thanks to the increased popularity in brown spirits. Bourbon and rye are as popular as they've been in this country since pre-Prohibition. The Manhattan is delicious, it's a little fancy, sort of upscale, very easy to make, and I'm going to show you how. The Manhattan's pretty simple to make. It's just a few basic ingredients. It's all spirit, which makes it kind of easy, and once you do it a couple of times, you'll have it mastered in no time, seriously. Bourbon or rye, as always with cocktails like this. Same goes for the Old Fashioned or the Boulevardier. I like to use bourbon, but I am going to use Old Grandad 114. So the 114 on this represents the proof. So this is a pretty high proof bourbon. Probably can't have too many of these with Old Grandad 114, but this is also a really high rye mash bill for bourbon. So it's spicy, and you like, that's why rye does go very well in these cocktails. You want that spiciness to play off of the sweetness. The only other thing we're really putting in here for the drink is sweet vermouth. Not dry vermouth, but you need Italian or French sweet vermouth. And then you will need, as always, aromatic bitters. And then we're going to garnish it with a Luxardo cherry. These are awesome. Buy these, not the ones that you used to have in your kiddie cocktail when you were a kid. Those are no good. Spend the money on these. They're a little bit expensive, but they last for a long time, and they are delicious. I'm also going to serve this up, and I like to serve it in these fancy glasses. You can certainly do this in a rocks glass on the rocks. I just like to serve my Manhattans up. Old Fashions I like on the rocks. I love these glasses. These have like these little engraved roses around them. These actually belong to my grandparents. These are probably from the 40s or 50s. So I love serving it in these glasses, very fancy. What I'm doing in here is I've got just some ice and some water, a little ice bath to cool the glass down. You could also throw it in the freezer for a couple of minutes. Not too long, but while you make the cocktail if you want. But you want this to get cold since we're not going to serve the drink over ice. The ratio I like to use for Manhattans is 2 to 1. You can play around with it a little bit if you like. I'm going to take 2 ounces of my bourbon or rye. In this case, we're using bourbon. And then I'm going to take 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. 2 good dashes of aromatic bitters. Good dashes. And then what I like to do here, remember we've got our Luxardo cherries, our maraschino cherries, and we're going to garnish with the cherry. I like to take my bar spoon and just kind of coat it. Not so much fill it, but just kind of coat it with the syrup. It's so sweet and good. And then I am going to mix the cocktail like that. So just to add another little element, that cherry flavor, that sweetness. Lots of ice, and we want to stir this pretty well to make sure it gets nice and cold. I've got my glass that I'm going to serve my cocktail in. I emptied out the water and the ice, just dried it out. Make sure it's nice and dry. And simply strain it in. And then take 1 maraschino cherry. You can take 2 if you like. You can put this on a skewer, but I just like to drop it in. And that, folks, is a perfect Manhattan. Classy, old school, and delicious. Cheers.